What do I mean by the second tablet of the law?
The one Moses held in his left hand.
Sorry, say again?
The one Moses held in his left hand.
Well, almost. The other hand probably, because they would have read not left to right, but right to left. I don't know. Yeah.
Does it have to do with now? It's about the second of the two, the greatest commandments about loving your...
Yes, thank you. We said in the beginning that all the laws of God, all the moral commands that has been binding before the fall of creation, after the fall of creation, under the law, when I say under the law, in the times of the Old Testament, under the laws of Moses, and in the New Testament era, they all can be summarized into love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so now you're finally started. The very first commandment was what?
No other gods before me.
Huh? What?
No other gods before me.
Yeah, no other gods. And now the fifth commandment is honor your father and your mother. The first one, the first tablet of the law starts with regarding God, and the second one starts with regarding father and mother. So let's read it together. And by the way, today is what day, Job? Today is what day?
Which one? There's so many days now.
In Asia?
Okay, yeah.
Lunar New Year, yes. So right now, there will be a lot of little kids visiting their grandparents' homes and then doing the New Year bow before their grandparents and their parents. This is the picture, by the way. And so in my kindergarten years, I learned how to do a proper bow. And all the girls also learned how to do proper bow in the kindergarten. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 16. Honor your father and your mother, as the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you on the land which the Lord your God gives you. Honor your father and mother. Now, how do we feel about this commandment? Do we feel pretty good? Are we honoring our parents? Are we honoring our fathers, our mothers? Or maybe another question to ask is, do you want to honor your father and your mother? That's another way to ask this question. When we think of honor, what do you usually think of? Oh yeah, I honor my father and my mother. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? Obedience. Okay, so they tell you what to do and you do it. Is that it? Respect them. Okay, and what is respect? Okay. Well, I'm glad that you guys actually mentioned respect and obedience because we will talk a little bit more about that. So when we think of honor, and especially honoring our parents, and especially when I think of the West, things have degraded a lot. The Western society is so individualistic, and all I see in society, in the news that we see, are not children that honor their parents. That's all I see. Whether it's in person, or I just have to just open up YouTube or news channel. That's all I can see. So historically, when we think of honor cultures, was Israel an honor culture? Yes. Is American honor culture? No, far from it. So what's honor culture like? The concept of shame is very strong, right? You, as a son, how do you introduce yourself, for example? Owen, you're walking, right? You woke up at 6 p.m. and then you're just walking on a bridge and you face a random stranger and he says, who goes there? And how do you introduce yourself? Yeah, something like that. Right. So you are actually identifying according to your family. My name, the last name Han, the historical records, at least with evidence, can be traced back to 916, year 916. Before then, it's more of a guesswork. But so there's a whole society of my last name that keeps trace of my last name, of who was born by whom, and all those things, traces. And so I am the 31st generation of this particular clan from this particular city, from 916 AD, right? So Asians are also very particular because they are also honor culture. And so you felt very strongly to represent your family well. And with any honor culture, there are good things and bad things, right? Because no cultures are inherently good. And there are things that I miss about Korea. And for example, how we treat the elderly people. And there are things I just don't like at all. At work, you can't leave until your boss leaves. If he stays there, if he chooses to work until 9 p.m., guess what? You're just looking at the same Wikipedia page or Google homepage until 9 p.m. because your work is done, but because your boss is there, you've been just staring at it. Oh, he leaves finally. Okay, let's get it to Reef. And then he says, well, we're going to have company outing, meaning we're going to go eat, grill some meat, and then drink until 1 or 2 a.m. All right, I guess that's my life. Right? I sit around, and one thing I do enjoy is like some of the etiquette at lunch or dinner, whatever it is, right? Basic manner and etiquette, I do enjoy it, right? And particularly in Asia, growing up in Korea, I did not start to eat. I did not pick up my eating utensil until I saw the oldest at the table eating first. That's when I start to eat. But not until he does. We must wait until the oldest starts to eat. And then you fill the drinks. If his cup is empty, guess what? I'm younger, so it's my duty that the older people will feel comfortable. There's just a lot of things, a lot of baggage that are associated with honor cultures. But we have to think, when it says honor your father and mother, we have to think in context of those honor cultures, where they took those family names very seriously. Blessings from the father was serious, as you can see in the Old Testament, right? Sharp will make sometimes joke about, placing your hand where? To get the blessing, you place your hand where? In their thigh, right? It's like, what the heck is that? Why are they taking those prayers so seriously? Why does Isaac go, Jacob go out of his way to deceive his older brother to get those prayers, those blessings? So we have to unwind our understanding and how we grew up, how we've been trained up in this individualized Western society, and think more about, well, does honor and shame have anything to do with the Bible is talking about? What does it mean to live in a society where the family means more than your father and mother, but they're also your relatives where you live? Everyone lived very close-knit together instead of being separated by, in the suburban homes, right? There's like an entire football field between houses. That's something that I had difficult time getting used to, is suburban homes. It's like so much spaces. In one sense, I guess it's great, but I really missed kind of small clustered villages and houses, places. And you can see also that we do not have the concept of honor anymore, because since when is it that we have punished people for disobeying their parents and living recklessly on their own? Right? You don't really see that anymore. In Boston, there was two men that were executed for murdering. And if I remember correctly, and this story I was actually reading from a sermon and saw this story. And these two men, I believe, were either rebuked or punished for disobedience by their master. And I don't think these are black guys. These are white folks that ended up in those places and became angry, took an axe, and killed their master. And so they were caught and executed. And there was a pastor who observed all this trial. This is public execution. And they would read the charges out loud to the public, what they were executed for. And this is a record that we see. In mentioning past crimes which had led them to this last horrible crime, one of these two men said that his disobedience to his parents had brought this misery upon him. He said that his father had given him good instructions when he was a child, but he hadn't listened to him. When his dad had tried to send him off to a school, he had refused to go. When his father chose a trade for him, he refused to do the work. And when his father died, he wouldn't obey the people who were responsible for him. He ran away from them, and after that day, that he ran away from several masters. And in this manner, he said, I have run into the jaws of death. And so they were executed. For what? Well, primarily for killing. But what were they charging him with? Like, what led to that point? For disobedience of the parents. And so there is such thing as death sentence. There is such thing as punishments for disobeying parents in the past. And when we are withholding the punishment, when we are withholding the rod that the Bible says to use to discipline your disobedient children, well, what happens? What happens to the society in general? Do you see the effects of it today? Of children doing whatever they want. No respect regarding their family. Well, what are some of the examples? Nobody? No one? Do we see it in the effect of children growing up in disobedience and then eventually see a more greater effects in the society?
They really do not respect people, so that when they're in jobs, they also don't respect their bosses and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I agree. You see, when you especially, well, right now, maybe you're forced to pair up in a group project. I don't know. You might have good teammates, maybe not, right? You'll have less of an option when you go into a workforce, and then you have coworkers that are intolerable, right? Sure, those can be effects as well. You see also greater effects, larger scale, right? I mean, there's a reason why there are much bigger hunger and movements among the conservatives who are into alpha males. Do you guys know what kind of movement I'm talking about? The red pill movement and hypermasculinity movement, those things, right? Those figures start to become bigger, and they are attracting more younger men. But even before those type of movements, or early stages of those movements, you have also like people like Jordan Peterson, who gave a lot of advice on the internet. And what happened? A lot of young men were drawn into it, and they saw him as the internet father figure. Why? Because a lot of people have been neglected of father figures in their childhood growing up. And especially when you see such high divorce rates across the United States and the single parenthood, not a surprise, right? We could be talking about also the black community. I'm just going to state the statistics. About 60, no, not 60. What percentage was it? Was it in the 20s or even lower of single parenthood in 1960s among the African American communities? Do you know what it is today? I believe it's like low 80s right now. So from the moment of the Civil War movement, Civil Rights movement to today, what a jump that is, right? So we could analyze society here and there in many different ways, how those family structure are dismantling and what kind of effects we see. We can do all those analyses here and there. Now, but nobody is doubting those type of effects unless you're completely blind. Now, as somebody has mentioned, we see the effect in, like, for our bosses, right? As you've mentioned. We do have different forms of authority, and I want to get that clear right now because I'm going to address more specifically regarding our parents, biological parents, and figures like that. But when we look at this commandment, the fifth commandment, honor your father and mother, the principle is authority. And it from our, based on how we are growing up in our childhood, learning how to honor our father and learning how to honor our mother, that's how it affects our attitude and our stance regarding other authorities in our lives. They are full of authority figures in our lives. Right now, right, you have professors in your life. When you drive, when you walk, you live in a civil sphere where you have civil magistrates who are authorities in your life. You have, what else? Country itself is actually called either motherland or fatherland or a mix. Is America motherland? What do Americans call it? Mother country. People say mother country, right? No? Father country? I'm pretty sure it's feminine. What? No, no. There is in America. There is a more association whether it's feminine or masculine. Latin countries, speaking countries, are a little bit of a mix. Germany, Netherlands, and there are some countries where it's masculine. Vaterland, meaning fatherland. Anyways, church is called mother church, right? Even we have spiritual fathers. We see more adoptions today than ever before, right? And people who adopt and raise them, who are they? They're fathers and mothers. And when you're in a church and you have mentors in your church, pastors who care for your soul, those are father figures. So we have various figures in life. For example, like Timothy in Bible was called my true child in the faith, my beloved son, as well as Titus. Onesimus, the slave that ran away and met Paul in imprisonment. Paul writes, my child Onesimus, whom I have begotten in my imprisonment. During the time of Judges, the leader in that village of like 200 people or so, right? They were called fathers as well. And this law, this commandment is very important because deep inside of us, authority we despise. From the very moment, the moment of Adam and Eve when they sinned, they rebelled against God, right? Because why? They wanted to be like a God. And so that started the whole rebellion. And ever since then, and actually part of the curse is that the man will rule over you. Do you remember that part of the curse, right, in Genesis 3? Well, there's some kind of problem with authority as well, some kind of authority friction. And then, since then, there's a constant rebellion inside of us that despise authority. And throughout politics, throughout Christian history, you see this tension constantly. We, in nature, hate authority. Why? Well, the book that I've been reading with a couple of students, what is it called again? By J.C. Ryle. Did anyone read with me J.C. Ryle? Yeah, none here. Wow. So some students have been reading the book, Thoughts for Young Men by J.C. Ryle. He lists a couple of sins, the typical sins that the young men faced 150 years ago or so. And one of them is obviously lust. Young people are drawn by what pleases them, right? Lust doesn't necessarily mean like sexual things, but there are things that we are drawn to. With young children, you give them anything that is sweet in their mouth, they go nuts. And then anything that is an instant gratification, young people go nuts about those things. Well, why? Because they don't think ahead. They don't measure the consequences. And whether it's 150 years ago or today, very common things when you ask civil magistrates, pastors, and even family members, particularly young men, are much more difficult to control. That has been always the case. And when I was teaching as well, managing classrooms, middle school and high school students, not easy. That's probably one of, not the most, but one of the most stressful part of the job is trying to have them behave in a classroom. But it became more difficult when the child was, not the fact that the child was difficult, but when the parents were difficult to deal with. Oh, there's a connection right there, why this child is so difficult. No wonder, no surprise. Well, why is this middle school student gossiping and slandering teachers all the time nonstop? I mean, all the students will do it at one point. But why this particular student? Oh, because the mother slanders to her child about this teacher. No wonder. And so classroom management, absolutely terrible. That's why and a couple of weeks ago when I was introducing about the law, the schoolmaster, that's why the concept of schoolmaster is so important. While we are young, we need to learn what is right and wrong. We need to be rewarded for what is good. When a child does something good, compliment them, right? Praise them, love them. But when they do something wrong, you need to make it clear that it's evil, that he shall not do it again. You need to make that clear to a child. And that's why the Fifth Commandment, again, is very important and it's related to all this. Now, now the question is then, regarding to our parents specifically, how do we love? And there are three things that you guys brought up, which is respect, obedience, and care. Those three things are all needed for you to honor your parents. And you should also regard those three concepts regarding other authorities as well. But particularly those three aspects when it comes to your parents. So, I asked, what is respect? Respect is the attitude of the heart. You can tell a student pretty clearly whether they have respect or not. But you go up to the student and ask him questions, you want to initiate some conversation. Well, I can tell pretty quickly within a couple of seconds whether that student respects me or not. Does that make sense? Well, how do I know that whether this student has respect or not? Because the attitude, you can't hide attitude very well. Over time, as you grow older and older, what you get better is getting better at hiding your intentions and your attitude. But particularly when you're younger, it's very difficult to hide it. So, attitude of the heart. What are some of the reasons that's difficult to respect your parents?
They might not always be right in your eyes with their judgments.
Yep, there might be not always right. They might not be always right, yes. Yeah, I mean, for example, when you're growing up and you become a young teenager, you start to see more and more flaws from your parents. Oh, I thought my dad knew all things. Oh, I thought my dad was this. Or my mother was this and that. And then you start to realize all those flaws in your parents. And that's when they start to also become more and more disrespectful as well. And there are plenty of other reasons too. What are some of the other reasons? Are your parents socially awkward? Yeah? Or are one of your parents or both of your parents way too passive or overly aggressive? Does that make sense? There are plenty of reasons for you not to respect your parents, or you don't want to respect your parents. There are plenty of reasons. But then we have verses like this. Servants, be submissive to your masters with all respect, not only to those who are good and gentle, but also to those who are unreasonable. We're not even talking about parents here. We're talking about slave masters. And Paul is instructing to the slaves, guess what? Be submissive, not just because they're gentle and loving and righteous. They treat you really wonderful and well. Even if they're unreasonable. Right? The verse right after that says that you will have favor with God when you do submit to those masters. And matter of fact, it doesn't do anything that you, the context, what's the point of you receiving reward? Wait, what's the context again? A couple of verses afterwards. It was last semester.
Yeah, I mean, it was something like why you do this submission.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's not waste time. Yeah, sorry. Let's just move on. Honoring is not reserved only to those perfect people that checks all ability, character, emotional intelligence, and so on, right? And again, we can look at other spheres of authority. And by the way, the three traditional spheres of authority that we understand as Christians are the sphere of the civil magistrate, the sphere of the church, and the family. Those are the three spheres of authority. So when we look at other spheres of authority, right, do we only honor those who rule over us when they check all the marks? So a lot of the Christians, I mean, Trump is always a kind of more of a divisive figure, I guess. But let's say President Joe Biden, right? Most students in my school were conservatives, okay? Are there a lot of memes about Joe Biden? Right? Are there nicknames for Joe Biden? Yeah. Will my high school students sometimes wear T-shirts with those nicknames or making fun of President Biden? Yes. So what do we tell them? You honor your president. Why? Right. Romans chapter 13. God has placed him over you, and you pray for your governor. You pray for his salvation. You pray that he will repent, and you pray that he will rule righteously. It's funny. It can be funny when I see a student, but guess what? We have to teach people to respect those who are ruling over us, politicians. Are elders and pastors and deacons perfect? Absolutely not. But do you honor them? Do you love them? Yes. That goes to your parents as well. But what's also interesting is in Leviticus chapter 19, it says, every one of you shall reverence his mother and his father, and you shall keep my Sabbaths. Okay, that's not really related right now. You shall reverence. What does the word here, reverence, mean? Now, I have talked to a couple of you about the word reverence before. I don't know if you guys remember, because it was beginning of last semester. But why am I usually a little bit annoyed by the word reverence? Does anyone, you should know. I think I talked to you about it. Okay. So here, the word reverence here is fear. What do you understand about the word reverence, by the way, an English word?
I feel like it's like a...
Deepest respect.
Yeah, respect, but like
Times 2, yeah. Not 2.5, but 2. No, the word here in Hebrew is fear. Yes?
Oh, I was thinking like deep admiration.
Deep admiration, yep, that too as well. But usually it's associated with positive things. We don't typically think of the word terror and fear. But that word is sometimes translated into terror and fear as well. And this actually happens surprising a lot of places in the Bible. I can show you also in Malachi chapter 1 verse 6, right? If I am your master, where is my... Well, in Hebrew it says fear, but I think barely any English translations use the word fear. Yeah, it typically says honor. And that Hebrew word for honor and the word honor in the commandments, different words, by the way. And honor, the word honor that is used in the commandments, that word is kind of derived from the word heavy, weighty. Now, here it uses the word fear, and the word honor there is derived from the word heavy and weighty. So my question is, are the words and the instructions of our parents weighty? Are their presence just mere somebody, or are they figures that we should have weight in our life? Because at least the way I see a lot of the children interact nowadays with their parents, it's not even a parent, it's mere friend. Parents are a little bit different from a normal friend. Can they be our friends? Sure, in American terms, that works. In Korean, I think I would never call my parents friends because they are my parents. But in English, it kind of works. But are they existence? And the words that come from their mouth and the instructions they give you, are they weighty? Do you fear them? Do you honor them? Well, when we first look at God the Father, in Ephesians chapter 3, it says, from whom, referring to God, flows all the familyhood or lineage. From the fatherhood that we see today flows from God in Ephesians chapter 3. And so when we look at God the Father, our attitude should be what? According to Proverbs, over and over and over and over again. according to Proverbs, what's our attitude towards God the Father? Fear. Fear is the beginning of knowledge. Fear is the beginning of wisdom. It prolongs your life. There's all kinds of statements regarding fear, right? And so if our attitude toward God the Father is fear, well, what's our attitude towards our parents? Because our parents are there's a parallel of God and our parents. There's a parallel right there. God who gives life and created everything, and our parents who has given us life and everything. That's why God takes it very seriously what our attitude is, our inner attitude toward our parents. Well, what does our words say? What do our gestures say? When you speak to your parents, do you speak with respect? Do you speak with honor? And that's a very difficult thing to do, especially when you're angry at them, right? You're dissatisfied. They're telling you to do something that you don't like. Like Cain. The Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" And he said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Can you get more passive than that, passive-aggressive than that? Is he openly rebelling with those words? It's not like those are not words that curses at God directly, but there is a sting in those words. Do we make similar types of comments to our parents? Yeah, of course. But in those moments when we're angry, in whatever situation is, do we honor our parents with our words? Well, then let's look at our obedience, because obedience is kind of related with our gesture, right? From our attitude comes our words and our gesture. And even with our overall gesture, there are many ways that we show our parents rebellious behavior. You can be aggressive towards them. You can be passive towards them. You can be passive-aggressive towards them. You can be, when you are visiting home, right? Maybe you're just expecting your parents to do everything for you. You're lying in your bed and sleeping in, right? Oh, well, my mom always cooks, so I'm just going to let her cook. My dad might as well look at with my car, with this and that. For you, I'm not going to have anything to do with it. No work. I'm going to let them do all the work. Or maybe when you're just angry, you just walk away in the middle of the conversation. I don't know what you do when you're angry with your parents. There are plenty of ways that we can show or what our attitude is, what our obedience is like towards our parents. And I do, in many ways, I do like the kind of the older times of the Western etiquette. For example, you weren't allowed to put your feet up at home or slouch. You weren't wearing hats in homes, especially when you're talking to figures in authority or teachers. Have you guys seen this short video that has been going viral for a long time of this soccer player? He is getting interviewed in England in the stadium, and suddenly from behind his old school teacher appears. And he says, "Oh, I thought you were dead," because he heard rumors from his friends that he passed away. Have you guys seen that video before? I mean, this is pretty viral. And so what's the first thing he does? Do you guys remember in that video? He turns around, he's shocked. The very first thing he does, he takes his hat off like this. "Mr. whatever his name is, I thought you were dead." It's like, dead, he says. It's like old man. But you can see from that very moment, like in that pure instant reaction, there's a complete respect towards his old teacher, right? Taking your hat off is not really a thing anymore. Maybe sometimes churches will tell you to do it out of respect when you're praying, but it's almost non-existent nowadays. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. Even those words, right? I learned to like them more. When I went to my church in Bloomington, Indiana, I used to hate it so much. Because I felt awkward. A little child is coming up to me and says, should I call you Mr. Sion or Mr. Han? Just call me Sion? It's like a little kid. It's still what I remember to this day. I felt so awkward. And then the parent says, no, you call Mr. Sion. Oh, okay. Well, the parent was talking to the child, not me. But for me, I was like, oh, okay, ma'am. Mr. Sion I am. You're teaching children how to respect others. All right, I am going to wrap up. But obedience, disobedience, respecting, disrespecting, all carries significant weight. And you see in the Old Testament as well, through the explicit laws, how to treat those people. Well, if any man has a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey his son or his mother, and when they chastise him, he will not ever listen to them, then his father and mother shall seize him and bring him out to the elders of his city, at the gateway of his hometown. They shall say to the elders of his city, this son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey us. He's a glutton and a drunkard. Then all the men of the city shall stone him to death. So you shall remove the evil from your midst, and all Israel will hear of it and fear. I'm not telling you to go ahead and stone people, right? We talked about the civil law versus moral law. But what this tells us is the weight of it, of children that are disrespectful and disobedient towards their parents. God took it very seriously. And so for us, we should take very seriously too. One of the key things that the pastors have been teaching me is always pay attention to the children. How are they behaving? How are they relating to their parents, right? You can tell, there are always subtle hints whether the child has been sexually abused, physically abused, neglected. There are signs. When I was one time volunteering at a daycare at YMCA, I was a complete stranger. But there were certain kids, this is from a poor neighborhood, very, very poor neighborhood. There were kids, even though I was a complete stranger, they would come to me, like hug my leg, my arm, my body, and not let go. And you can tell, just instant moment, something's weird. And as the day goes by, as they're so clingy, and you start to realize, oh, okay, they are hungry for love because they have been emotionally completely neglected in their lifetime, right? And that doesn't disappear. People, as they grow up, right, they can tell how they've been influenced, right? And lastly, care for your parents. Care for them. That is our duty. That's how we show our respect and our love for them. That's how we honor them. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he is denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Your parents are not going to be strong forever. They're not going to be fit intellectually all their life. They're going to grow older and older and older. They're going to be more dependent on people to survive, to go through daily life. And you have the duty to take care of them. But not only when they're older, but show them that you love them. Right? Do you call them? Right? Do you show through your words and through your gestures that you appreciate them? My dad comes from an area in Korea where it's known for like macho men, right? They are very stoic, they talk very aggressive and everything. My dad was not the best when it comes to showing emotion and love, right? Well, nowadays he's very different. But I noticed a change. He was actually quite affectionate when I was very young. But at one point, I started to feel how he was awkward about it. And that is reality. Many of the parents start to awkward at a certain age when you grow older. They'll feel a little bit awkward because they don't know how to relay their emotion and love for you anymore. Nowadays, I've learned to joke with him, and I'll sometimes initiate the hug. And maybe sometimes I'll kick him, jokingly. But that's how we kind of emotionally relate, right? I'm not going to be standing like him, oh, Dad. We don't really do that. But because I have to go kind of his way of how I can show my emotion. I'll just do this, and maybe I'll try to trip him, like something. But it's our own little ways where we show our emotions, okay? And so it's going to look a little bit differently. But physical appreciation, even kiss. With some of my closest friends, right? I remember this guy, we became very close friends. And one day he just kind of kissed me on my cheek as we were saying goodbye. I was like, ugh. But that's how he grew up, is kissing on the cheek of those who he's close with. And guess what? Nowadays, there are like a bunch of people now that I'm very close with, and whenever we say our goodbye hugs and everything, we just give each other kisses on the cheeks. It's different. And people notice how I was more physically affectionate, and some people are awkward about it, I can tell. Like, I remember this guy, right? Hey, it's a long time. And I'm just standing next to him. I'm doing this, This, you can feel the entire awkwardness around his shoulder. But I kept doing that. He got used to it. Including my high school children, the way I was treating them. I don't know, like my signature somehow became like putting them in a headlock. But, that became a thing. And they appreciated it eventually. Even initially they were weirded out, eventually they appreciated it. I think. Don't be afraid to show verbally and physically that you care for your parents. I'm going to skip all that. All right, first, what makes it difficult for you to respect or show love to your parents? Number 2, how should we deal with disagreements with our parents? Number 3, how should this honor transfer to civil and church authorities or in a university setting? And lastly, when you pray particularly when you're sharing prayer requests, by the way, don't be superficial. And when I say superficial, it's easy to share prayer requests about school. Okay? Oh, I'm very busy. Yeah, I believe you that you're busy. But is there more that you need, that you want to get prayed for? So spiritually, that's something that's hindering you, things that you are wrestling with, certain things. I don't know what it is. But there are things that we should really care about and be open with for the people, so that there are other people that can pray for your soul, not merely superficial things. Does that make sense? All right, go ahead. Amen. All right. Any questions? Any questions, guys? Yes, Owen.
Should we call you Mr. Syed or Mr. K?
So it really depends on the context. If it's like a school as a teacher, then they all call me Mr. Han, of course. Yeah, thanks, Alyssa. In like more like a social setting, right? If you're not married, then you call Mr. Sion. Southern etiquette-wise, that's a Southern etiquette. And the last name, Mr. Han. I mean, married, then Mr. Han. Yep. And it depends. If you also feel a little bit more, I feel like Chinese today, then Shifu. Shifu. You know what? Sushi sounds nice right now. Then Sensei. Yep. I need some kimchi today. Then 선생님 will be the, yeah. Yeah, dude, bring it on. Like, do you want tacos? Do you want curry? You know? I mean, they're not the most known Asian food, you're right, but any other question? All right, let's move on. Just to wrap up real quick though, very briefly. Not everyone will grow up the same way because we are dealing with sinful people. You yourself are sinful, and your parents are sinful, right? And some will experience the sin much more extreme than others. Like I said, there are people who do grow up with abuse, and there are people who grow up with neglect. And that will influence how you view God the Father. People who have more abused background have more difficult time understanding God as the Father, right? But it is also through our parents and through the imperfection and the sinful parents and authorities that God uses for us to teach, to honor God, to know God as well. All right?
Now may the God of peace, who brought up from the dead the great shepherd of the sheep, through the blood of the eternal covenant, our Lord Jesus, equip you in every good thing to do his will, by doing in us what is pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be the glory forever and ever. Amen.